Imagine a wound that leaves no visible scar, no broken bones, but aches deep within your mind and spirit. It's a pain that confuses you, makes you doubt your own memories, and slowly erodes who you are. This is often the quiet, insidious reality of emotional abuse. Welcome. Today we're going to bravely explore a difficult but crucial topic, understanding why emotional abuse happens. It's a form of violence that doesn't involve physical touch, yet its impact can be as devastating, if not more so, than physical or sexual harm. We'll peel back the layers of this complex issue, looking at the behaviors involved, the profound trauma it inflicts, and the underlying dynamics that allow it to take root. Our goal isn't to blame or judge, but to illuminate, to understand, and ultimately to empower. First, let's establish what we mean by emotional abuse. At its core, it's about one person maintaining power and control over another. It's a consistent pattern of words and actions designed to scare, control, hurt, or isolate a victim. Unlike a punch or a shove, emotional abuse often operates in the shadows, making it incredibly hard to identify, even for those experiencing it. The tactics used by abusers are varied and insidious. Think of verbal abuse. This isn't just an occasional argument. It's relentless criticism, name-calling, demeaning remarks that chip away at your self-worth. It's yelling and threats that keep you constantly on edge. Or consider gaslighting, a particularly cruel form of manipulation, where the abuser makes you doubt your own perceptions, memories, and even your sanity. They might say, "That never happened," or "You're imagining things," until you truly start to believe you're losing your mind. Then there's isolation, where an abuser gradually cuts you off from your support network, friends, family, hobbies, until they are your only source of connection. Control can manifest as demanding passwords, dictating what you wear, or tracking your every move. They might also engage in denial and minimization, refusing to acknowledge their harmful behavior or downplaying its impact, often turning it back on the victim. "You're too sensitive," or "You made me do it." And sometimes abuse starts deceptively with love bombing, an intense, overwhelming display of affection and attention that creates a rapid, false sense of intimacy, only to be followed by the controlling behaviors. This can be followed by withholding, where they refuse to communicate, listen, or emotionally withdraw as a form of punishment. So, why do people engage in these behaviors? While there's no single answer, abusers often share certain characteristics. They typically have a profound need for control and power, often stemming from deep-seated insecurities. They can be possessive, hypersensitive to criticism, and have an almost pathological inability to take responsibility for their actions, instead blaming everyone else, especially their victims. It's important to understand that sometimes abusers may have underlying mental health conditions, such as certain personality disorders like narcissistic or antisocial personality disorder. They might also have a history of being abused themselves, low self-esteem, or struggles with substance abuse. However, and this is crucial, these potential factors explain behavior. They absolutely do not excuse it. Understanding the root does not justify the harm. Now, let's turn to the devastating impact on those who experience emotional abuse. Because it's a constant, unpredictable barrage, it creates a state of chronic psychological trauma. In the short term, victims often feel confused, fearful, and hopeless. They experience shame, difficulty concentrating, and even physical symptoms like muscle tension, nightmares, or a racing heartbeat. They question their reality, constantly walking on eggshells.
The long-term effects are profoundly damaging. We see chronic anxiety, depression, and often post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Self-esteem is decimated, leading to difficulty forming healthy, trusting relationships in the future. Neurological research from experts like Lane Strathern actually shows that emotional abuse, especially in childhood, can cause physical changes in the brain. Areas related to self-awareness and emotional regulation, like the prefrontal cortex, can show reduced gray matter volume or thinning. This can compromise psychological, social, and moral development, potentially leading to epigenetic changes linked to depression. Disturbingly, studies suggest that the long-term negative effects of childhood emotional abuse and neglect may be even more severe and debilitating than those of physical or sexual abuse. Given this severe impact, a common question arises: why do people stay in emotionally abusive relationships? The answer is complex and heartbreaking. Victims often have such damaged self-worth that they believe they deserve the abuse, or that it's their fault. Fear, of physical harm, financial ruin, or losing their children is a powerful deterrent. Financial dependence, a lack of understanding that this is abuse, and the cyclical nature, where periods of calm or love bombing follow abuse, can all trap someone. They may not recognize it as real abuse because there are no visible scars. This brings us to a broader societal challenge. Emotional abuse is hard to define precisely, making its prevalence difficult to measure. There's an ongoing debate about its comparative severity to physical or sexual abuse, with growing evidence pointing to its equally, if not more, devastating long-term psychological consequences. The lack of visible scars makes recognition and validation incredibly difficult, both for the victim and for those around them, including the legal system, which struggles to define and prove emotional abuse in court without accompanying physical violence. Recognizing emotional abuse as an adverse childhood experience, or ACE, is a critical step in addressing this. So, what have we learned today? We've seen that emotional abuse is a silent but powerful force, driven by an abuser's need for control, often masked by their own insecurities. We've understood the insidious tactics they employ, from gaslighting to isolation, and explored the profound, often invisible, trauma they inflict, trauma that can reshape the very brain and devastate self-worth. And we've recognized that victims often stay not because they want to, but because they are trapped by fear, manipulation, and a shattered sense of self. But understanding these dynamics is the first crucial step towards change. The future of addressing emotional abuse lies in continued awareness and education, helping individuals recognize these patterns in themselves or others. It requires enhanced therapeutic approaches to heal trauma, rebuild self-esteem, and establish healthy boundaries. And yes, it demands policy and legal reforms to better acknowledge and address this pervasive form of violence. If anything you've heard today resonates with your own experiences, or if you suspect someone you know might be struggling, please remember, you are not alone, and it is not your fault. There are resources available: mental health professionals, support organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline, Safe Horizon, or Psychology Today, and many others who can provide a lifeline. Recognizing emotional abuse for what it is, a severe form of trauma, is the critical beginning of a healing journey. Let's commit to fostering a more informed and empathetic society, one where everyone has the right to feel safe, respected, and truly seen.